In this presentation, I'm going to describe to you a freely available online game and corresponding lab activity. We will focus on conducting a paired t-test. The goal is simply to determine which car is faster. As students can see in the corresponding lab handout, they are going to race two cars, one called Bayes and one called Gauss, and determine which is faster. Students use the arrow keys to control the car, race each car on the same track, and then the computer game, as well as a corresponding Shiny app, record this data and allow students to use visualizations or hypothesis tests to draw conclusions. Before students conduct this experiment, they practice racing through an online tutorial, and then they are asked to design an experiment. Here's an example of what a race looks like on this free online game. You first put in your player ID, and then we also put in a group ID, which is usually something the entire class uses. We can run the tutorial or actually start playing the game. Once we're in the game, we can select from a variety of cars, then just hit next, and then choose a track. And the race will start. At the end of each game, you can see your results, and you can go back to the main menu and play again. This is the site that shows all of our currently available games, with links to the game data, instructor notes, and data visualizations. You can click on the Data Visualizations tab, and it will automatically bring you to a Shiny app where all the data is automatically loaded. If we look at this initial graphic that shows all the games ever played for all group IDs and all player IDs, we can't see much of a difference here. We can add a box plot. We see that most people complete the game in less than 25 seconds, but there are a few that take longer. As with all of these game apps, you can type in your class or group ID and just get the data related to your class. As you see here, students do not always follow the instructions and sometimes play more games than they're originally supposed to. But for this class ID, we can identify the player IDs. Point out here are encouraged to be anonymous names. It is possible to put player ID on the x-axis so we could identify those students who played the Nightingale car, but it's much easier to just download the data as a CVS file. And here we see the complete data set for this class that had played the game. Since the data isn't always clean, we have a second app where if you select the right groups, you can conduct statistical tests. It'll give you the p-value for the two-sample t-test as well as a p-value for a paired t-test. You can conduct ANOVA, or you can conduct ANOVAs with block designs, blocked by the player ID. Going back to our original app, I also want to point out, in addition to the body of the car, Bayes, Gauss, or Nightingale, they can choose different types of engines. They can look at different types of tires and see how each one of those can contribute to different aspects of the speed of the car. Instead of finish time, we can look at their top speed, and maybe more interesting than these factors, we can look at the order in which the games were played. In general, we can see that a lot of the games took much longer to complete the first few times we've played it. We also see that there's somebody in this data set that has played the game more than 80 times. One of the most surprising results of this activity is that student feedback consistently says it is so nice to finally conduct a real study in our statistics class. We use textbooks that we thought were using real data. But with this game, we are not working with a clean and vetted data set. Students need to make their own decisions about what to do with outliers and unusual observations. And in addition, instead of just saying the p-value is small or large, they have to say, do I think this car is better? Do I have enough evidence for that? So they have to put the p-value in a very different context. What we find is that students are much more careful to draw conclusions when they have collected the data themselves. These online activities make it very easy to incorporate a research activity or an experiment into a class of almost any size. We also try and connect this activity to real articles, and students quickly see how they can apply what they've learned in the game to published articles in various disciplines. In addition, students tend to be eager to develop additional experiments to improve their gameplay. And in our assessments over the past few semesters, over 95% of students suggest we continue to use this activity in future courses.